Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Wherever you are watching, I bring you greetings from the United States. I am Moreh Matan, Pastor Matt McKeown, and it's wonderful to be back with you this Shabbat for Treasures of the Torah. This week, our parasha, our Torah portion, is Toldot. And there's an interesting concept that we learn in Judaism about what's known as the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov. The good inclination, the Yetzer Tov, and the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara. Now, in my teaching in the first year, in year Aleph in Yeshivat Shuvu, I talk about this, about an inner struggle, and how we all have this inner struggle. Yetzer Tov versus Yetzer Hara. Who is going to win? It's like a competition. It's like a wrestling match. We might look at this in the Brit Chadashah, in the New Testament, where the Apostle Paul, Rav Shaul, says, the flesh and the spirit. We have these two things that are warring back and forth. Well, in this week's Torah portion, we learn about how Rebekah has an inner struggle of a different kind. The inner struggle with the twins that are in her womb. Now, she actually thought that this might be an inner struggle of herself, of her good inclination and evil inclination. And let me explain to you how this went. First of all, our key verse is going to be Genesis 25:22, where it says, the children, this is Jacob and Esau, Yaakov and Esav, the children struggled within her, and she went to inquire of Hashem. Now, Rashi says, well, what did she inquire? That he would tell her what would happen in the end. Now, let me read this to you. This is a commentary in the collection of commentaries known as the Wellspring of Torah. And this particular commentary comes from Rabbi Simcha Bonim. And it says this: we are told that whenever Rebekah passed a Jewish house of study, Jacob would move convulsively in an effort to emerge. However, whenever she passed a pagan temple, Esau would strain to emerge. Rebekah thought that she was only bearing one child, and therefore she assumed that the convulsive movements she felt within her when she passed houses of study and heathen temples were indicative of a struggle between the good impulse and the evil impulse in the child that she was going to have. Sometimes she thought the evil urge won the day and the child wanted to rush out and worship idols. And at other times she thought the good inclination had gained the upper hand so that the child wanted to emerge and go to yeshiva to study Torah. Naturally, Rebekah was anxious to discover what would happen in the end, as Rashi says. And she wanted to discover the outcome of the inner struggle that she thought was taking place within her child. Good or evil, which of the two would strike the final blow and emerge as the victor? Throughout our lives, a war against our evil inclination is waged. Sometimes we will win, and at other times the evil within us will gain the upper hand. Regardless of temporary reverses, we should see to it that we are able to strike the final blow and emerge as the victor in the struggle. I think this is absolutely brilliant, and I think it's so well said by this rabbi. So imagine, it's not that there was one child in the womb and it was a struggle within that one child, but rather it was two children. Jacob, who wanted to go to the houses of study, and by the way, when it says there in the English, in the book of Genesis, that Jacob was a man who dwelt in tents, a lot of times we think this means, at least in Western culture, that he was a bit of a homebody. He was kind of a mama's boy, for lack of a better term. But to dwell in tents, a man who liked to dwell in tents, this literally means to be involved in the house of study. And we know that that's what he was doing. He was in the study halls of Shem and Eber, that he was studying Torah, while Esau, his twin brother, was out not only hunting for animals, but he was a person who had a thirst for blood. In fact, Jewish tradition tells us that he was the one who slew Nimrod out in the wilderness. And it was after this murder that he came in and was asking his brother about the particular stew that he was eating. In fact, we know that this stew of lentils is a mourner's dish. They are mourning the death of Avraham Avinu. So Jacob and Esau, Yaakov and Esav, there's a struggle there. There's a difference of who they are at their core. And it's a struggle to know, number one, who will win, or perhaps number two, how there can be a reconciliation. You see, in Judaism, Yaakov, Jacob, is a symbol of the Jews. And Esau, is a symbol of Christianity. Now, this reconciliation that needs to happen in the last days is something that we are actively a part of. For instance, we could look at the relationship that I have with our rabbis. They are Jewish, I am a Gentile. And we have this relationship where we're trying to make a tikkun. We're trying to make a rectification because Jacob is missing something, namely the Messiah, and Esau is missing something, namely the Torah. And so the two must come together, or as Rabbi Shapiro likes to say, meet in the middle. And this is so important. It's so important for us to understand. It looked like at one point they were going to reconcile because we see a kiss on the neck between them. But our sages tell us that this kiss was not genuine, that it was really attempting to be a bite on the neck, an attempt to injure or kill even. There was a time that we're going to talk about in future lessons where it looks like that Esau is going to go with Yaakov. But he only does it for a little bit. He doesn't fully go with him. And that is one of the things that's so eloquently borne out in the book, The Rivka Remnant, that Rabbi Shapira has most recently published. It's something that we must understand. This struggle between Jacob and Esau, between Judaism and Christianity, has been going on for a long time. And there must be a rectification. There must be a tikkun. There must be a healing that comes. There must be a recognition that each one has something that the other needs. And there must be the humility in order to, number one, admit that, and number two, to take the necessary action to make it right. You are a part of this journey. If you're watching this, whether you are Jewish or whether you are Gentile, you as a follower of Yeshua the Messiah have an obligation to play the role that you're meant to play. And there is a role for the Jew, for the Gentile. There's a role for the Messianic Jew, for the normative Jew, for the Gentile Christian. There's a role in the last days for all of these parties. In order to bring the redemption and the return of King Messiah, we must all do our part. And we need to pray that just as the inclination of Jacob was to want to emerge when they passed the house of study, and for Esau to jump out when he passed the house of idol worship, we need to work toward strengthening our good impulse and work toward trying to subdue our evil impulse. It is brought down in the Tanya that there's this one known as the Ben Oni, or sometimes pronounced the Benoni, the one who is the middle, the one who is not wicked, he's not righteous, but he's kind of somewhere in the middle. And the Tanya tells us that it is good to be that type of person, to not think of yourself as too righteous, to not think of yourself as too wicked, but to be in that position where in humility you have a firm grasp on who it is that you are. And that in that position to take this battle between the good impulse and the bad impulse and to truly be victorious. Remember what Hashem said all the way back when another couple of brothers were having an issue, Cain and Abel. Remember this: sin is crouching at your door and you must subdue it. You must overcome it. And that my brothers and sisters, is what Judaism is all about. To proactively do the good, and in doing so, we are staving off the bad. I hope this lesson has been a blessing to you, and I hope that you will go forward being more mindful of engaging and strengthening your good inclination, because walking with Hashem in a Jewish way is not so much about avoiding bad things, but rather proactively doing good things for the kingdom, for His glory, so that we don't even have time to think of doing bad things. All the best to you and your family. Shabbat Shalom.